Olin, and greetings once again to the Truth Core, whoever and wherever you may be on the planet. This is the second talk in the series of Public Sanity Alerts, PSA. And the purpose of this talk is to set out for you what it takes to dispel and defeat the curse of the alien authorities. Now, this expression, alien authority, may come across a little strange. I haven't used it before, and I want to make it really clear at the outset how valuable this term can be. So my intention for the takeaway is that you would comprehend exactly what this means. In doing so, you would be directed toward the kind of action, the fundamental action it takes to overcome this curse. So the term alien authority begs the question, well, what is genuine authority? There must be genuine authority, basic and authentic, that stands in contrast to alien authority, right? Well, the answer is simple. Alien authority is any authority that you yourself do not confer. You are the only source of authority in your life. And as the sovereign source of authority in your life, you also stand as such in the world, in your family, your community, and your nation. And you stand in solidarity with all others who recognize that the basis of authority resides uniquely within the human individual. You can call it the factor of conscience, and it is closely related to conscience, of course. Now, needless to say, there are many authorities in the world, more every day. It's a pyramidal structure. There are the authorities who give the orders and issue the orders at the top of the pyramid, and then all the levels of hierarchy through which that authority plays out in scenes and events and confrontations in the world drama, as I like to call it. So it's possible, and it's certainly more than possible, that on any average day of living your life, you will confront the authorities. But they are the alien authorities, not the genuine authorities. Anyone who comes to you and imposes anything on you, any rule, any restriction, on the basis of a presumed authority they have to do so, is acting in a way that is alien to human nature and alien to everything that makes possible a free and cooperative society among humans and among all the races on this planet. So those authorities who appear now all over the place, down to the most trivial minion in the street who is policing Quantum 19 regulations, well, those authorities are all alien. They are all false. And they, in fact, have no authority upon you except in the case that you concede or confer value on their false claim of authority. You must consent to their authority over you. And even when you do that, you are not in a way validating their genuine authority. You are enmeshing yourself in the deception of authority by that compliance. I repeat that the only genuine authority in the world is your sovereign conscience as a human animal. No one can have authority over you unless you comply with them doing so. So the words, "I do not consent," are extremely powerful. They indicate that you recognize the root of authority in yourself, and you will not allow any alien or deceptive version of authority to affect you and to determine how you behave in your life or what you say and think at any moment. So obviously, clearly at this point, the basic requirement for overcoming the Soviet regime that is being implemented in the world today is to say, "I do not consent," and to own and act on your sovereign authority. It's as simple as that. Yet that simple act is a powerful act, and it comes with great responsibilities. And in some cases, in making that assertion of your sovereignty, you will face risks and threats. But if you do not make the assertion of your authority, then you are already defeated, and you have, in fact, abdicated the power to live your own life as a free individual with no intention to harm and deceive others. Do what thou wilt, and it harm none. So living as a sovereign individual, you are free to do as you will, and you hold no malice toward anyone else except those who intend harm. No harm intended except to those who intend harm. So it is a brutal fact of life today, and becoming more and more obvious as this event develops in the world drama, that your sovereignty requires taking the responsibility to intend and enact resistance and harm toward all of those who confront you with alien authority and the illusion of power. Now, at the risk of digression, I do want to take a moment to address a common misconception, which is often framed in the terms of natural law or inalienable rights. So it's often said that according to natural law, you have certain inalienable rights. By another interpretation, these rights are God-given. Well, none of that is true. I'm not talking about natural law here. I'm talking about the laws of natural authority inherent to the human animal. And that being so, it must be brutally clear that no one gives you sovereignty. God doesn't give it to you, and neither does the goddess, and neither does it come from the natural world. Human animals are distinct from other animals in nature in that they have the ability to act in natural authority. And where does that come from? It comes from nowhere. I'm reminded of certain densely intellectual expositions in existentialism, which, if you extract the essence of it, is quite brilliant. And existentialism has made this point that freedom, human freedom, is something like the void. And existentialism stresses the fact that you are only free when you act freely. You only have a conscience when you act on your conscience, you can't have it passively. It's not a capacity that was given to you by any power whatsoever. It is the way you act when you own and reveal and demonstrate your own power, which is the power of natural authority. So I advise you to be careful about those two concepts of natural law and inalienable rights. Although they're well intended, they are, to my mind, rather misleading. And I would add that you don't have any rights. There are no such thing as rights just given in some mysterious way by some autonomous power. Rights are nothing but agreements made in the social contract between human animals. So you have the right to come to my house and come in the front door without knocking if we agree. But there are no rights that are absolute and God-given. What is inalienable, and there again is that word alien, in you, is not some set of rights that you have, like written on stone, like the Ten Commandments, but it is your capacity to own and act on natural authority. And it is a responsibility. It is a basic and primal responsibility. So it can be said that responsibilities are what it's all about in making the best of life, and responsibilities are far more important than rights, which are nothing but agreements made between free and sovereign individuals. It is often said in the critique of the Soviet system these days, which is growing stronger and more well-defined by the minute, it is often said that the authorities in any country rule by consent. Well, it's easy to say that, and yet, of course, they don't rule by consent, because the hallmark of alien authority is the imposition of power on others, the imposition of force, threat, intimidation. So, even though ideally it could be said that society is set up in this way, in the social order, members of the social order confer on certain other members authority. Even though that could be an ideal situation, it's far from it, because those who receive that authority abuse it. And they do not rule by consent, even though basically and fundamentally that is supposed to be the agreement we have with the authorities. And if you assume that agreement, then fine. But you have to be savvy enough to realize that the authorities are constantly violating the agreement that they will rule by consent. And what do you do about that, kiddo? At this point, I invite you to turn your attention to the word curse. Now, this is a powerful word, and it's even more powerful when you realize that the world today, the events unfolding in the world drama today and over the last 2 years, reveal that humanity is targeted by a curse. There is a curse on all the human races. The origin of this curse is no mystery. It's hidden in plain sight. It's right out there in the open. I've dedicated a considerable amount of my time in talking and writing to expose the source of this curse. It only has one source. You know, there's a saying in the Gnostic texts, whoever does not know the root of evil is no stranger to it. So, the source of this curse is the root of evil. And speaking mythologically, that source is an actual figure in the religious imagination of the human races. It is the wrathful Father God of the Abrahamic religions. I assure you, that is the sole and unique source. Now, it is true that other mythologies present representations or scenarios of wrathful deities. So, for instance, there is the wrath of Thor in Scandinavian mythology, said to be displayed by thunder, thunderbolts, and lightnings. Or there is the wrath of Zeus in Greek mythology, and the wrath of various deities like Indra in Hindu mythology. But when you look closely at those narratives, you see that there is no comparison whatsoever with the unique case of the Abrahamic Father God. So it is the Abrahamic Father God who has put a curse upon the world, and there is nothing mysterious about that either. In the foundational text, the scriptures that are contained in the Bible, you find the curse, one version of it, stated explicitly in Genesis. So the story goes that because Adam and Eve were presumed to be the first human beings, the parents of us all, although the Talmudic interpretation of those figures is quite different, as I've explained in Mythology 101. Nevertheless, the narrative says that Adam and Eve disobeyed the Father God, and as a consequence, he put upon them a triple curse. Now, in looking at this subject, I direct your attention to a speech that was given in August of 1920 to a small group of people in Germany. And the title of this speech is Why We Are Anti-Termites. The speaker on that occasion cited the Bible, much to the amusement of the crowd of listeners. And what he said was, look at the triple curse of the Father God. Adam and Eve were punished with the curse of labor, of physical work, the curse of birth, a woman's labor presumed to be painful, and the curse of death. And how insane and anti-human is that? Any sane human animal knows that work is a source of dignity and purpose. It's how we help ourselves and help each other in any cooperative society. Giving birth cannot be a curse, because the propagation and preservation of progeny through childbirth is the great joy of all races. It's the joy to bring life into the world and to continue life through birth. How can birth be a curse? And last but not least, how can death be a curse? Death is, after all, a part of life. It is the natural end of life. It is something to be embraced and something to be accepted, which gives dignity and depth to the human experience. It is completely demented to turn these three factors of human experience into curses. But that is exactly what has been done through the alien mindset of Abrahamic religion, which contains, central to its ideology and program, the notion of a superhuman authority that exceeds the natural authority inherent to every human animal. It's as simple as this. This is the bottom line of the game. It is the bottom line of the deceit of the archons. And it gets worse, because the triple curse conferred upon Adam and Eve is the least of it. Look for a moment at the psychological profile of the wrathful Father God of the Old Testament. He is a he, and he is jealous, vindictive, violent, genocidal, xenophobic, biophobic, and his intention is to inflict judgment, punishment, and retribution on all those who do not obey him. So the curse has many dimensions. And if you look at the world drama today, and you look at the way that the lives and livelihoods of countless millions of people have been ruined by the COVID agenda, I don't think you have to be a mastermind to see that the world today, the events in the world today, are unfolding as if the population of the world was under a curse. Look at the measures contained in this psyop. The measures defined and enforced by the authorities with the false intention to protect the world from a monster microbe that was originally created as a section of computer code in the first days of January 2020 by Christian Drosten. This is a fact. So an archontic artificial microbe, which is not alive, which is simply a computer program, is the basis for the program of the authorities who state that they are there to protect the world. And yet, what is this protection? It is a ploy to inflict suffering. It is violent, it is hateful, it is insane, and it all goes back to the alien mindset of the wrathful Father God. And all the orders and authorities coming from the top of the pyramid go to that same source. Whoever does not know the root of evil is no stranger to it. So take the agnostic advice and know the root of evil. You don't have to be confused about it. Focus. Focus on what it is. It's extremely powerful to see it for what it is. Now, I will add one more factor into this little exposition before I take this talk around the bend on a slightly different theme. The unique and imperative value of the Gnostic intel, which I have elaborated extensively, has many features. But central to all those features, the Gnostics warned us that there is a paranormal factor operating in the human world. An extra-human, non-human, and anti-human paranormal factor. So I would advise you strongly that your comprehension of the root of evil will not be complete until you can incorporate that realization. There is a factor of the paranormal operating through alien authority and the illusions of power that are running rampant across the world today. All right, so far so good. Now I'd like to talk about how it happened that we came to this desperate and dangerous situation. There's a saying that I like. It comes in a gaming metaphor. And I would advise you that sayings that are expressed in a gaming metaphor have a certain magical value to them. And they have a unique kind of power to bring us to the truth and show us how to act on the truth. This saying is, gratitude is the gesture of a winning hand. The gaming metaphor here applies to the game of life. Consider that life is a game, and everyone is dealt a hand. Your genetics are some cards in your hand. The personal and material circumstances of the family in which you were born, other cards in your hand. The background of your race, your nationality, and your ancestral achievements that stand behind you and contribute to the person you are other cards in your hand. These are the cards you're dealt. You play it as it lays. But what guarantees that when you play the game of life, you will have a winning hand? Gratitude. And gratitude alone, and gratitude supremely, is the gesture of a winning hand. Now, think about gestures of gratitude and how common they are. Someone passes you the salt over a table, you say thank you. You're served a coffee in a restaurant. You make a transaction in a store, you buy some clothes you like. The seller thanks you, you thank the seller. The expressions of gratitude are common and natural in any sane and free society, and they come naturally. Gratitude has to be genuine. It's a gesture, but it's not a false gesture. False gestures of gratitude are pretty obvious, and the consequences of them can be pretty bad for both parties. You can reflect extensively on the importance of gratitude in life. In the first place, how about the gratitude of being alive? The gratitude for being alive. How about that, for starters? And if you feel gratitude for being alive, to whom do you express this gratitude? What is the source of your life? Obviously, if you are grateful for being alive, then you are grateful to the source of life. But what's your conception of the source of life? Well, for many around the world, it's some vague notion of God. But that notion of God that they have is not innate and authentic to them. It is due to their indoctrination, their religious and cultural indoctrination that tells them who or what God is. But in the living Gnosis today, the message is different. There is no abstract God, off-planet, invisible, omnipotent, all-knowing. There is the earth, your divine mother. And it is to her that you can be grateful for being alive. And when you feel the gratitude toward her, toward that living earth upon which you stand, whose air you breathe, the planet, the superorganism that sustains every breath, sustains every minute microbial activity in your body at every instant. When you feel that gratitude toward that source, then you are grounded in human reality in a way that you cannot be if you feel gratitude toward an invisible and off-planet God. Now, I say that gratitude is the gesture of a winning hand. Think about that expression for a moment. Say you're sitting at a round table playing cards, and the dealer deals you your hand, and you open your hand and you look at the cards. You shuffle them around in a certain arrangement. Sometimes you hold them close to your chest. Sometimes you hold them out further. Sometimes you peel back the corner of one card to look at another. And as the game is dealt and you play your hands, you do it with a certain style. There is a certain series of gestures that you express and demonstrate as you're sitting there playing cards. Gratitude is like that. It's expressed in gestures, in a style of communication and interchange with others, and also with the divine and supernatural presence that is the source of your life. Religious worship, as it is called, is a gesture of gratitude, isn't it? Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, the practices of religious worship conducted by countless millions around the world exemplify being trapped in illusions of power, disowning one's authority, and placing it in some kind of abstract higher power. So people who look to the off-planet God as the source of their life also, almost unanimously, look to that God as the source of ultimate authority. Well, that is a very, very serious and dangerous mistake that needs to be corrected to find our way into the beauty to come. In the beauty to come, there is no authority except that which is owned and given by the sovereign individual. And there is no other source of life except that which is before you at every moment in the presence of the earth. This is the supreme Gnostic message. An important factor in gratitude is that it is not obligatory and cannot be. Otherwise, it is not genuine. So if you are truly grateful, then you are grateful for something that merits your gratitude, and not everything merits your gratitude. There is a biblical commandment, honor thy father and mother, which could be translated as be grateful to them. But hold on there. To be grateful to your parents when they do not merit your gratitude is not a good thing to do. Or for anyone else. To be grateful to anyone else who does not merit your gratitude is a self-defeating error. There is no obligation in gratitude. It has to be merited. And in that respect, gratitude is like respect. In that respect, it is like respect. You see? Gratitude and respect are like Siamese twins. I can speak for myself in this context, if it might be appropriate. Nobody gets my respect unless they earn it. And my standards of respect are quite high and rigorous. Now let's take these notions of gratitude and respect and apply them to what's happening in the world today. And if you do so, I think you will see immediately what's wrong and how this could have happened. How this crime against humanity could have happened. In the first place, isn't it a fact, an unfortunate fact, that people respect the authorities? They respect the government. They respect the alien authorities. And they trust them. And since the authorities claim that they are imposing these punitive and insane rules upon the world in order to protect people, then no doubt, and you can see this coming, that there are actually people who are grateful for having their lives ruined in this way. Yes, it has come to that. And there is an even deeper insight that can be drawn from what I'm saying here. I'll put it this way. To my mind, there are two elementary factors that contribute to the world being in the terrific crisis of today. How could people comply with the ruination of their lives and the deprivation of all the simple pleasures of life, the simplest pleasures of life, such as dancing, socializing freely, being physically intimate with friends and loved ones? How could anyone comply with measures that prohibit this behavior? I'll tell you how. They were not grateful for having those liberties in the first place. They were not grateful enough for being free. Because we were free to a certain extent in the old normal. Now, I know certain people would argue with that, saying we have been under assault by the authorities and the enemies of life for a long time, and they've set up society so that we are not as free as we could ideally be or wish to be. I won't argue with all that right now. I totally agree that there has been a program of enslavement operating on this planet for a long time, which goes back again to the alien mindset of the Abrahamic religions. And so let's leave that as a side discussion. But I emphasize that those who were not grateful enough for the freedoms that they did have, such as they were in the old normal, have brought this situation upon themselves. And the different world, the next world, in the beauty to come, is a world filled of gratitude in which no one takes for granted the precious freedoms that we have. But again, no one gives you those freedoms. You claim them from the natural authority of your sovereign self. Reclaiming them is the way to dispel the curse of the alien authorities. And the primary factor in that act of reclamation is gratitude. The other factor, of course, is education. So there is a large measure of ignorance that plays into humanity finding itself in this horrific situation. Ignorance of the laws of nature, ignorance of the simple fact that CO2 and carbon are essential components of life, ignorance of biology, of the falsity of the Pasteurian theory, germ theory, ignorance of the deceit and error in that field of science called epidemiology. So there is a huge factor of ignorance, and people have to be re-educated so that we can triumph over the enemies of life. But without gratitude, even that re-education will not be enough. So in conclusion, the point is, my friends, that the failure of gratitude has been a major contributing factor in leading the populations of the world today, of all races, into this horrific situation of the communist Soviet takeover. I can express my closing message to you in the imperative tense. Be grateful that you know that you are the sovereign source of authority. Be grateful that you see the error of conferring authority on anything or anyone or any system outside yourself. And be grateful, most of all, to learn uniquely through the living Gnosis today that your gratitude, your highest gratitude, goes to your divine source, the Aeonic Mother, who designed you. And be grateful that she designed you to be autonomous and gave you the skill to detect error and deceit. And knowing all that, perhaps you can find in yourself the courage to stand up for what you know. No matter what the risk, no matter what the threat, of course, learn to choose your battles carefully. But anything less than that, to do anything less than that, is to be the willing victim of the curse. Enough said. And I'll be seeing you in the beauty to come.